Today we're going to be working on a 2012 Lexus RX 350. We're going to be putting a V-line in here, and we'll be taking out the radio and display and the navigation module. So I'll show you how to do that. So the first step, we'll be taking out the center console here. To do that, we'll open the glove box and just lean that back. Then we're going to take a pry tool, pry up, and once we've got that loose, we're going to take off the shifter knob here. I'm just going to spin that counterclockwise, and now that we've got that off, we can pull this fully up. And if you need to, you can use your pry tool along the top part to get out those few clips. There we go. And now that we've got this loose, we're going to unplug all the connections on the bottom. So we're going to start here with the heated seats. If your vehicle doesn't have the heated seats or cooled seats, you won't have this plug or this module here. Then we'll move on to these other plugs. And then to pull this off, you can just wiggle it back and forth and pull, or you can lift up on one of the sides of the clip. There we go. And that's how you get that loose. And then we're going to have our last few at the top up here. Go. So now we've got the center console part out of the way. We're going to take off this piece of trim here, and you can actually just pull towards you, and that'll come out. And once that's loose, we're going to jump over to the driver's side and take off the knee bolster. So now that we're taking off the knee bolster here, the first step will be taking off this side panel. We're just going to use our pry tool to pry on that. And there's all those clips that hold that in. Once we've got that out of the way, we'll take off this button panel right here. Go. And we're just going to use our pry tool to pop out these clips that hold that in. And we're going to unplug all of these. And now we've got access to this screw, and we've got one more screw up here we'll get out next. And if you have the cup holder here, there is going to be a door right on the bottom. You're going to have to pop that down to get access to the screw. There we go. And the screw is going to be directly up. There we go. And now that we've got those out, we've got this side loose, and we're going to pop off the passenger side of the knee bolster. So we can go ahead and pull on this now, and the driver's side over here will come off, and then we've got the other side on the right. We're just going to pull on that as well. And now we've got everything loose, which is to unplug this connector. And now we've got the whole knee bolster out of the way. Alright, so the last thing over here is going to be this piece of trim. You can just push towards the driver's side with it. That'll get out these two clips, and once those are out, then you pull out this way, and these will come out. Alright, so now that we've got all the trim out of the way, we're ready to take out the radio. There's going to be two bolts on either side. One's going to be up, kind of like the one over here for the cup holder, and one will be more straight on. It's best to use a flashlight and to look in these holes right over here. There's also going to be two on the passenger side that we'll need to find. Alright, so we're going to take out both of them over here. Alright, so we're going to take out the one over here on the passenger side. There we go. We've got one out there. And we're going to get the other one as well that's in here. There we go. So now that we've got all four bolts removed holding this in, we can go ahead and pull it out. I like to lower the gear shift here. You can press this gear shift release. Just make sure you have the parking brake on. And we'll pull that down. And we're just going to pull around the radio. You can also use a pry tool if it's a little rough to get out. But this one came out pretty easy. And next we're just going to be disconnecting all of our plugs on the back. Alright, so now we've got the radio fully removed. So now that we have the radio out, we'll go ahead and remove the display. And we're just going to pry up in each corner, left and right. And that should get out these two clips. And then it'll actually tilt down like we just showed. And we'll be able to remove this. And now we're going to have the two screws right here that actually hold in the display. So we'll remove those. So now we're going to remove these three screws that hold it in. Now we've got all three of those removed, the display will pull out. And you might have to tilt it back like this to pull it out, and then we can tilt it back up. And we're going to remove these two connectors on the back for now. Just pull the display out. And now we're going to move on to the navigation module at the bottom down here. Alright, so to get to the navigation module, we're actually going to have to loosen up the gear shifter here. And we're going to need some room to do that. So we're going to remove the 4 of these Phillips head screws. And now that we have all 4 of those removed, we're just going to lift this off the peg right here. That'll give us room to pull this out. There we go. And we'll do the same on this side. And then we're going to have 4 12mm bolts that we need to remove. So we're going to start with the one up here. And then we're going to do the one over here on top on the driver's side. And then we're going to have the 2 that are in the bottom. And you are going to want a longer extension to get these. I'll do the one on the driver's side. There we go. And as you can see, when we loosen the last one, this is now loose and we can pull it back. There we go. And once we've got that off the top 2 pegs here, we'll be able to move the navigation module around. So we've got the navigation module here. And as you can see with the bars here that it's mounted on, we do have it loose, but there's no way to actually lift it up without taking off one of these mounting brackets for it. We'll show you that in a minute, but if you do want a quicker install, you can just go ahead and reach behind here. There's plenty of room to reach back and unplug your connectors and put in ours. So you can do that now, but we are going to go ahead and remove the full thing so we can show you where everything plugs in. So as you can see from the side in here, you can see the 8mm bolts that hold on the actual bracket for the right side of the navigation module. We're going to take off these 2 bolts in there, and then we'll be able to move it around. There we go. So now that we've got both of those loose, we can pull out this side bracket. Alright, so now we've got this loose. It is on the bolts on top and on the bolts on the bottom. So if you're having issues getting this out or getting this off, make sure you pull this out a little bit more and make sure to pull on the bottom, because that's where the screws are that hold in the bottom part. And now that we've got that right side loose, we can actually pull this off the 2 bolts on the left side, and we're going to rotate it sideways. And we're going to wiggle that out. There we go. So now we've got this partially out. We're going to go ahead and disconnect the plugs on the back, and then we'll show you where to connect ours. Alright, so now that we have the navigation module removed, we'll show you where to connect our connectors. We're going to be connecting our MCF LEX6 harness, and that'll be going back here. We're going to plug it into the 26-pin connector, the 12-pin connector next to that, and finally the 8-pin connector. And then from here, all of our factory plugs that were originally in these slots will all plug into these female ones here. And then we're going to run this side of the harness to the glove box. So now we're going to go ahead and connect all the factory connectors back. And I'm going to grab all of the ones that plug into our harness first, since they're going to have a little bit of extra length. There we go. So we've got all the V-line connectors plugged in, and now we're going to lower it down in the dash a little bit and plug in the rest of these connectors. Alright, and now we've got all of our connectors in. We're going to want to route this cable for the V-line behind the actual navigation module and over the top for now. And then we're ready to slide this back in. When you're putting this back in, you kind of have to play with it a little bit just to get the angle right. So I've got the left bracket lined up, and now what we're going to do is we're going to slide everything forward a little bit, and we're going to put back on the right bracket while it's in here. And these are the pins right here that both the shifter knob and the navigation module brackets go onto. And you want to make sure that both this hole and the bottom hole down here go on both of those pegs. And once those are in place, everything will seat back. Alright, so to get this bracket back in, what we're going to do is we're going to put it in sideways like this. we're going to go underneath this little bracket, and then we're going to tilt it. And then I'm going to get it on the top peg up here. There we go. And once it's on the top peg, then you're going to have to pull back on the shifter and just make sure the bottom lines up as well. There we go. And now that I've got that on there, I'm going to push the navigation module forward just a little bit and line up these holes on this side and go ahead and put my screws in. Alright, so we've got our first bolt in, now we're going to do our second one. There we go. And so now that we've got both of those in, now we can go ahead and line up all the pegs. So we just want to make sure all 4 holes are lined up, like we've mentioned, and then we're going to go ahead and put the shifter back into place. And it's going to be the same thing there. Just want to line up all 4 holes. And now that we've got our V-line harness here, we're actually just going to put that to the side, put that up here, have it out of the way. And we're going to go ahead and put on all 4 of these 12mm nuts. Alright, and now that that's back in place, we can go ahead and start putting all this trim back on. And there's a little clip on this side over here, so make sure you do push that back in, and then everything will line up. And now we're ready to put in our 4 bolts here. There we go. And now that that's back all in place, we'll go ahead and move back up to the display and finish our install. So we're going to put our GVMF cable up here, and we'll pull that back down for now. We're going to plug in this side to the factory connector, and then this other end is going to be going into the display now. And we're going to route this down behind the radio cavity area, just going around these AC vents here. There we go. And then from here, we're just going to be routing these over to the glove box, and then we'll be putting everything back in. Alright, so we're ready to run our cables through to the glove box here. I've gone ahead and removed the air cabin filter cover. It just lifts up and then pulls out with those 2 clips on the end. And we're just going to run our wires right through this little area here. Just go straight back. There we go. Alright, and now that we've got these in the glove box, this is where we're going to be installing the V-line. And for this, we'll be notching out a little corner of it so that we can put this back on and still have our wires run through. Alright, so we've got the V-line connected in the glove box, and we've got all of our cables installed here. We're going to go ahead and put the display back in, and to do that we're just going to plug our GVMF plug into the back of the display, and then we're going to need this connector here. Now that it's all plugged up, we're going to slide it back into place. We do want to make sure our cables don't get in the way at all. I'm going to push those back a little bit. And we mainly want to line up these 2 clips in the corners, and then of course all 3 holes. And now that we've got that back in, we can go ahead and put our trim back in around the display. And it'll be kind of the same thing. We're going to put the top in first. And there's 2 clips up here that I want to make sure we get. And then from there we're going to tilt it back, and the 2 clips in the bottom should fit in. And next we're going to go ahead and put back in the radio itself. And we're just going to slide that back into place. Just going to make sure all of our clips line up everywhere. There we go. And now we've got this back in. Before we put anything back together, we need to go ahead and put in our 4 bolts, 2 on each side, so we'll do that now. So now we're putting in our bolts here. There we go. And we're going to put the second one in there. And we'll jump over to the driver's side and put those 2 in. Perfect. So now we've got all 4 bolts holding this in, and we're going to move back to putting in all of our trim next. So we're going to go ahead and put this piece of trim back in now that we've got our bolts in. And then we'll also jump over to the driver's side and put the other trim on that goes in over there. So we're going to go ahead and put this in now. Make sure you get these 2 pegs lined up perfectly. And once those are in place, just push against the trim and it should snap right in. And now we can jump over to the knee bolster next. So our first step here is just going to be snapping this back into place. We do want to make sure we plug this connector back in, and then all these other ones we want to push through this hole. And then from here we're just lining up all the clips and pushing them all in. And now that that's good, we can go ahead and put the bolt in on the bottom here. And then our last bolt over here is going to be going in the cup holder. There we go. And now that we've got that screw in, we can close this door here. And we're ready to put this button panel back in place. And that just snaps back in. And the final piece over here is going to be this. And pretty much here you're just going to line up all your clips, push it in, and then you'll probably have to take a pry tool at the end to pull this rubber around it. If it's just a little bit like this one though, you can normally kind of work it with your hands. There we go. And now we'll move on to the center console. Alright, so our last step here is going to be putting this center console piece back in. And we're pretty much going to be plugging everything in here. So we'll show you that. And if you do have the heated seats, I like to actually pop this out. And we'll set that to the side, and that'll be the last thing we put in. And we'll ignore this plug that has all the foam on it, because that goes to that module. And finally, this clip on the bottom. There we go. And now we're just going to slide this trim back into place. We want all of our clips to go in. Now we want to pull this plug out. And the last part, we'll just be plugging in the heated seats and pressing that in. And then we just need to put on our shifter here and everything will be all back together. We're just going to spin this back on clockwise this time. And you don't want to tighten it too much, but you do want to get it where it's not exactly loose, where it'll shift around while you're driving. And that should be good.